Welcome to Dinner at the Rectory. I'm Father Tim, and I am joined with Father Mike. We have a monthly conversation about the things we're reflecting upon, thinking about, and discussing. This month, we're talking about AI. Everyone's been talking about it. A lot's been going on. The Pope himself has been writing articles and sending messages out on it. And so we're going to have a conversation reflecting a bit about our usage and kind of ways that we think Catholics can think about it, can engage with it to unpack a bit what we should think about and react to these new technologies as they're changing our economies, changing the worlds around us. As Catholics, we need to engage with these realities. We can't necessarily run away from them. Well, some might think we want to run away from them, but never. So we have to be informed on what these realities are as they're changing the world around us. So we're going to have a chat about that today.
Very excited. Yeah, I think that's been one side is, all right, let's just get away from this. Let's not touch it. Anything that isn't, inherently personal or can kind of be a shortcut. Okay, better, safe move is just to ignore it. I think it's always a temptation with any technology that comes in is, all right, let's just walk away. And then the other side can be a bit too of a too unscrupulous of an engagement with it. Of this is new, let's get involved, let's just do it. Makes life easy, okay. And we can end up shortcutting or, as we'll get into it more later, of taking away something of ourselves, lose something of ourselves in that. So first, I think we want to get into and answer the question, before we answer how do we use it or some of the ways we've been using it, let's just get a clear idea as to what it is that we're dealing with. And Father Tim, I think you're particularly suited to explain a little bit about what we're talking about. We're talking about AI and large language models specifically.
AI. So the name itself is fun. People have strong opinions on it. Artificial intelligence. We've already decided we're just going to call it AI. But it is important to note that it's intelligent only in, I'd even say, a metaphorical sense, not even in analogical sense. But we have to use words and everyone's going to use it, right? So artificial intelligence. It's also one of those fun things where it meant one thing like a decade ago, and now all of a sudden AI just means ChatGPT, and ChatGPT just means anything that talks back to you and something that seems like a person-ish. Right. So AI, large language models, these are those apps that everyone's been using, right? We have Claude, we have Gemini, we have ChatGPT. You give it text, it responds back. Kind of interesting, AI has a lot more going on than just it. AI or just really any system where we take computers, it does fancy math, so fancy statistics to derive some kind of result. These newer models have been building up for a couple decades now, really last 15 years in particular. And so we're going to be particularly though focusing today on the LLMs, the large language models, largely ignoring those others while realizing like they also exist, but keep our lives simpler. So we're going to focus more on what does it mean to like use ChatGPT, AI, because they're very persuasive, right? It's great. Like you go on ChatGPT, you ask it a question and it gives you a very reasonable answer very quickly in this text that is understandable.
Increasingly so, right? And that's what a simple form that somebody just helped me understand was something like ChatGPT or Claude, you're dealing with a chatbot plus a large language model. And so it engages with it, and then it throws kind of all of that text into the large language model, which kind of interprets that and then gives you back a response that's like makes the most sense probabilistically based on like what you've given it.
Yeah.
And so you put it in, it's got basically the whole internet more or less there.
Yep.
And it's using that to kind of give you a response that makes sense based on what you've said. A very complex, I don't think we need to get into like the whole vectors and all that sort of thing, but it's kind of tokened all these things up so you can kind of say like, this makes sense based on your response. Yeah. And then if you ask another question, then it's not a continuing the conversation. It just takes everything before in the conversation, throws it back in the LLM, then give you a response based on that whole thing.
Yeah.
And then that keeps happening until you reach the max amount of junk that you can throw into the LLM.
Yeah. Well, the example I will use is a Mad Lib.
Yeah.
Right. You're playing a Mad Lib. There's words that are missing out, but based on the previous words, there are only so many other things you'd fill in those other parts. LLMs are the best Mad Lib players possible because it's just really good at putting plausible words into those spaces.
It's, all the words on the internet have interact with one another.
Yeah.
And can then interact with them in the right context, usually based on what you're asking it.
Yeah. At least a reasonable way, right?
Reasonable,
it seems like at a first glance, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. A person would have said that.
Yeah.
Or could have said that.
Right. And it's helpful to know that nobody has said the things that it's saying. These are novel creations. And it's not exactly looking through and scanning the internet, kind of reasoning through it and saying, this is the best response. In that sense of like, hey, research assistant, go find all these things, think about it, and now give me a summary. It's not that, it's not doing that much work in that regard. It's giving you, it's a simpler kind of interaction.
Yeah, right. So the models themselves aren't doing that. You'll see if you go in the like help pages or the further descriptions, they'll say when their knowledge base was cut off because the models can't learn. They're a static, ginormous math equation that can't be changed on the fly to make our life simple. So once it's done, like it can't learn anything new, which then also means that, right, it's not scanning through the internet. It's just based on what it already knows, quote unquote. It then gives an answer. Though where ChatGPT and Claude and the other major companies are going is to, based on the question, formulate search results, then search the web for all those things.
Really?
And then pull them back in, throw all that context back into it, and then produce back it. So it is getting kind of closer to like what a research assistant would do. And then it also kind of gets into a question on what is being modeled. And this is a big open question among the AI scientists themselves. My understanding is what exactly is modeled in the models? Because if we as humans in our writing have modeled relationships in existence, right? A book is true because the words within that book accurately articulate a relationship between entities of reality. Well, then that means I can find a real and limited, but a real correlation, statistical correlation in how those words are used, because there's a real relationship in those sentences in the texts.
Yeah.
And so if the model then produces a result saying there's a statistical relationship between these words, is that result is in some way reflecting the statistical relationship in its source material. And so there's a degree where it's quote unquote making it all up. There's another degree that why it's so believable is because it's surfacing realities based upon realities we've already discovered.
To reflect that back and more, just bring that down a little bit for my sake as well as for anybody listening. So we're saying something like say we're talking about the Summa Theologica or something, right? So Thomas has thought about these things and he's written all these words, and those words are things that he's thought about, saying like, what I'm saying is true based on, like relating it to his own experience, relating to his understanding. Like there's thought involved, right? This is true. And now what the large language model is doing is saying, reflecting back, the way all those words are kind of coming together, that's how they go together. Like that's a true expression of like, this is the most probable way that these things come together. Like, I don't know, God is one or something, let's say that. It's like, it's going to say that not because it has thought, yes, what I know of the concept of God and the concept of unity, these two go together, but it is saying, Thomas Aquinas says God is one, or equates the concepts of unity and God, those two terms, very often. There's a high degree that those two things go together in a positive way as opposed to a God is not one. Like that is the way that relates. Those two words and ideas relate most often in his thought. And that's what it can give you back is like, probably as in like most commonly, these things are related. And there's a high degree that it's showing what concepts are brought together and the relationship of them in a work.
Well, and that's where philosophically gets really interesting, because if you begin with the presupposition of, say, materialism, all relationships in the world are just statistical probabilities. There's no intrinsic relationship between them. And so everything that's produced by the model, so like Aquinas, while he's writing that, there was just a probabilistic chance he was going to associate those ideas together. Like, there's no actual truth behind it.
If we're materialistic.
If we're materialistic.
Yeah.
So like he just did it, and then the model just did math to say that it's the probability of him randomly doing this was this, that these two things are associated together. And so there's no conveyed information then, because there is no information in what Aquinas did.
Yeah.
But if what Aquinas said was true, right, that these words in which he wrote were signs to authentic realities, and how he associated those words together, those associations point to real realities. So his consistent association of God with one, if that points to a real reality, then the model pointing to Aquinas says that commonly these two ideas go together. The model then is conveying a latent real relationship in reality. Now that's less exciting because, of course, Aquinas says God is one. But let's say you ask it a question on Aquinas' overall corpus that other people haven't asked, and it starts pulling out associations between Aquinas' thoughts. Something I've been thinking about more, and I've been using a tool to work on, is Aquinas' relationship between grace, form, sacraments, and the impartation of a form on a soul by the sacraments. Like, and what does it mean for a soul to receive another form, and these kind of things.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a fairly complicated question, and Aquinas does address this, but not in a systematic way. Well, if the model says, okay, but Aquinas statistically associates in a high degree these parts of the Summa together, answering this question, well, all of a sudden it's like, well, this now might be bringing out some new relationship, not new relationship, the relationships are always there in Aquinas' thought that we haven't realized because it was just hard to tie all those pieces together.
Yeah.
Whereas it can do the math for us and be like, yeah, there is a high statistical probability that these parts of Aquinas' thought go together. And then that might realize that, oh, there's actually a deeper truth here we hadn't realized that Aquinas articulated, because the ability of tying those pieces together. Now, the human part needs to come in, which is why we can't just trust that the information the AI says has conveyed actual information.
Hence the research assistant, not the researcher or research writer. Yeah. It's like, this is a nice, you've gathered info. Now I can reflect upon it, see if there's actually real meat there.
Yeah.
And then continue to process and understand.
And that's why it's not true intelligence.
Yeah.
Because it can't ascertain a form in it. Math can do a very good job at modeling the relationship between forms once we have identified them. But you need an intelligent being to do it. And part of why it's been so kind of interesting, why it's been doing so many fun and interesting things, is there's just so much reality embedded in human writing.
Yeah.
Which is why I say, right, any of the great writers, the reason why we can still read Shakespeare or we can still read Dante hundreds of years later is that we are still discovering truths in these realities, in these works. And this is just giving a really sophisticated linguistic analysis on it to give like, hey, here's maybe more things to even think about that you didn't realize before.
Yeah, it helps to kind of, one, give you things to think about, but also then to gather these ideas to see if there is relationships that are there. I can analyze the text. That's helpful. Now, here's, based on what you kind of been saying here, because one of our mutual friends, he went to a talk up at a local seminary on AI, and the guy talking about it used the analogy of a parrot in a library. Of it can, has this large library of things. Imagine everyone's reading books out loud in this library, so it's able to understand. And it can parrot it back. It doesn't actually think about or understand these things, but it can parrot back what's been said. And it seems like as these different companies running their LLMs are trying to work on these different AIs, are trying to make that parrot more and more like a librarian, to be able to be more and more, at least it's never going to actually have the intelligence of the librarian to truly understand and be able to give, but it can get closer and closer to that more like complete response, or intelligent response is what I want to use. But something like that. Is that a fair kind of
I don't want to throw shade at the person because I don't know who it is and I don't know their particular argument, but I don't like the parrot because the parrot is fairly indeterministic. Whereas these systems are more deterministic, like they're probabilistic, but that doesn't mean they're random.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas parrots parroting back is fairly random.
Yep.
They might be conditioned to respond, like Polly wants a cracker in a specific time of day or when a particular TV show's on, like they have some environmental factor that they're conditioned to. But there isn't a strong link between input to output. Whereas with the large language models, there is a link between the input to output. Yeah. Now, it's not, you can't determine one-to-one in advance how you're going to get there, but there actually is some causal link, not extrinsic, but like an intrinsic link between them, which is why I went through the metaphysics or like the epistemology before, and like, if our text has actual truths embedded in them, like there was real information that was conveyed through it. It doesn't know that, but we're able to ascertain it. So for example, I will at times, I know you will, go on to ChatGPT to look for a recipe for something.
Sure.
And how is it able to so frequently produce a usable or at least close to usable recipe? Not because it knows anything about cooking, but because it is created a statistical analysis on cooking websites and has determined that statistically, like these kind of things will go together. And the reason why it's able to so regularly produce workable recipes is because the math underlying the model is accurately enough modeling reality, because its base material is accurately modeling reality. Whereas the parrot has no model of the things it's parroting back in there. And that's like, it's an important difference.
Yes.
Like the recipes, like there was actual real information that was conveyed. The model has no information about that. It doesn't know that. Just as like go on Zoom, the Zoom streaming service has no information, like no knowledge about how you're coming across the screen. That doesn't mean there's no information being conveyed, even though you're not actually in the same room as the person. And that's kind of where the importance of the information being in the actual source information. Like, it's not just nothing, I don't think.
Yeah.
And like, I know people disagree with me on that, but I don't think it's actually nothing.
Because I've heard that too recently.
Otherwise it'd be random.
Yeah. And
the fact that we can find, oh, this recipe works. Something as simple as that it can reliably produce cooking recipes means
you have this large body of truth that it is drawing from. How accurately or well it's able to give you response based on that is what they're working on.
Yeah.
But based your original question, original answer, but based on this large body of human knowledge, hopefully truth, it's being fed on.
Well, but then human knowledge is any variety of quality of books is all over the place.
And then the internet, is this unreliable place to begin with.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with that.
So and then that leads into so much, right? What is this information actually coming in? Hence why we always wanted to be careful what are you reading in. Like you always had to be a critical reader, which is also, look, machines putting out like believable writing, so I'm going to believe it. When you just go on Google, you read the first 5 sources, like, okay, well, am I going to believe this or is it just a bunch of SEO garbage?
Right, and you figure like Gemini or there's like that AI summary of your, when you now do a Google search, is basically just reading the first 5 articles and summarizing them for you.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay. Usually it's enough, because usually that's what you do when you want to look something up anyway. But sometimes it doesn't bear deeper scrutiny. Okay, so that's AI.
That's AI. Like what most
broad
people
enough,
talk about
right?
AI, right? Like that's ChatGPT, that's LLMs, that's like all of these things.
The popular consumption of AI.
That's what AI is.
Yeah. So at least we get what we're talking about. It's not Al, from 2001: Space Odyssey. I think that's right. I think that's right.
Hal.
Hal?
Hal.
Dang.
H-A-L.
I've been sloppy. I haven't watched enough TV lately. But yeah, so it's not Hal of like this supercomputer really understanding everything, but it is this very good tool of searching these things up. All right. So how have we been using it? I think that's helpful. I think people can sometimes view priests. I work with a lot of young people, and it's like they're using it and they kind of wonder and they feel bad or kind of almost scandalized if you are. It's like we are using AI, and how much? Okay, I think that's what we kind of want to talk about. It's like kind of revealing your hand, it feels a little bit. And I will say that it's something that we're kind of at least both of us can say experimenting with. And I have other priest friends too, experimenting with how to use it, what works well. And the Pope's admonition for priests to not use it to write their homilies, I think was much needed because there is a real temptation there. And I can say like, yeah, I have used it in different ways for homilies. I've used it in different ways for emails. I've used it in different ways I do these like, short bulletin articles, for the people. And that's been as little as, here's Pope Francis's homily on this, summarize this into like a 1-page thing for me, or help me to write, give me some ideas for how to combat the sin of sloth, to be able to write something. And I will say I've used it in some of those ways and realizing sometimes that feels a bit too far. And I've used it in some ways that I find a great effect of, all right, I've now written something, proofread it for me. It's a very good proofreader. You get the same types of things that likes to use those kind of dashes.
The M dash, like,
the M dash.
Just stop. Put a comma. I don't need
a comma is fine. I have to go myself. I was like, no, stop. I don't want that. Commas. And then, it's perfectly written thing and it gives you M dash. It's like, all right, now everyone knows it's AI. it's like, no, I wrote it, this whole thing. I put a comma there. But so it has that. And then another way is helpful to get like the blank page kind of thing of like, I have no idea what to say for this. Give me some words on how do I speak pastorally about humility? Oh, that's helpful. Okay, then I'm rewriting the whole thing, but at least it gave me some starter to work with. It's easy to kind of craft something at creating it ex nihilo. It's like it's easy to work with something, even if it's not right. Like actually, I don't want to say that. I want to say this. So I found that to be a helpful usage, and of course, just like to save me the Google search.
All the time.
It's
such a better Google.
It is. It's a fantastic Google. Yeah. Like, all right, help me understand, like, what is the best way to cook a steak? What is the best type of, like footwear? Help me find orthotics. Like, just, and it's like, oh, these are actually really great ones. So you should do this. I'm like, do I really need to do this? Like, well, it may be based on these reasons. I'm like, actually, those are good reasons. Dang it. And so I do find myself sometimes engaging in that kind of light way of just like, help me to think about this as I'm trying to kind of craft my own thoughts. And it is fun to kind of bounce that back. And so that's how that's how I've used it. In addition to like recipes and things like that.
Yeah, it was like the better Google, like all those things. I've just realized a couple weeks ago how ChatGPT does just what I wanted Google to always do. Was just like, I have a question, I just want an answer. I actually don't care where it comes from. I actually don't care about any of these other things. I just need something to give me some direction to go to with this or that.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't want to read your whole blog post as you're doing all these other things. Like I don't want to watch your YouTube video. I don't want your transcript. I don't want any of this other stuff. Like I just want it's a 2-sentence answer.
Yeah.
But I also realize it's kind of an esoteric thing that I doubt anyone in the internet has particularly taken the time to write a post on X.
Yes.
And now do it. And then those sort of like quick little things is super, super helpful.
Very helpful.
Makes our life so much easier on finding. That's probably where I use most of my AI. Like as far as like the numerical number is gonna be like just quick little questions. Like, hey, what is this? I don't want to actually waste my time going around reading all these things.
Well, that's it.
Give me an answer, please.
Yeah, I'm listening to this podcast on the Mongols, and I find myself like looking up like, hey, like who are the Tartars? Like what is the Seleucid Empire? Like just and give me 100 words. Like I don't want to have to do the whole read through, but it's like it is helpful. Like boom, quick answer.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
Well, and this is where people will say, but how do you know it's right or wrong?
Yeah.
And in part, our opening conversation, for at least my part, it kind of addresses how I have to have confidence in that. But there's also a certain degree where, particularly the last few months, I think the model qualities have got to a place where, as I was saying, there will do web searches and start bringing these things in on certain points. But we also just, for a lot of time, just assumed that some random person's blog was authoritative. And nothing against them. Like, I write things and put them online too, and I like to think I'm smart. But there was like, we just gave everyone a pass on so many things, and that like critical reading and all of this. But I kind of think if I wouldn't look at this any more closely than I would some random person's website, then I'm not going to be any more worried about this. No, yeah, if it's important, then like do more research. But we should have always been doing that. But I find it interesting that all of a sudden we're far more critical on things that we weren't in the past. And maybe I'm just being more critical of people that is unfair. But there's a degree where I'm like, well, what is a Seleucid Empire? Well, at the end of the day, Wikipedia was going to answer that. And I think Wikipedia is fairly accurate, but like, we're not going to be critical of Wikipedia, but it's just, ChatGPT is just pulling it from Wikipedia. So it just did it more quickly for me because it understands my language without me having to figure out, did I spell Seleucid right? And is it Seleucid or whatever of these things? I don't know. Dan Carlin just said something and I just put it in ChatGPT, figured out what I was trying to ask. And I didn't have to fight with Google on how to spell things.
And it can figure it out enough to actually be helpful. It's like, thank you. And to trust it, it's what is it drawing from? It's drawing from the internet. We trust as much as we trust the internet.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do more, then you should do more.
Yeah.
And I think that's a helpful thing. Now, you did mention you've used it at some degree for homily writing. What capacity does that take for you?
Yeah, so I've never just like used it to write a homily. This is where I have something of a moral problem of just using a written homily from AI, because the purpose of a homily is to teach the people of God, and that's supposed to be something prayed through, produced by like a soul that knows God.
Mm-hmm.
And a computer like can't do that definitionally. And so like just taking a homily that was written and reading it raw, kind of like just feels wrong.
Yeah.
Like the people have a right to hear their pastor, their priest, their clergy, not
even if it's a lower objective quality, like, you know, like lower literary quality, but the fact like it actually is from you.
Yeah.
Someone who cares. And we talked about this earlier. It's like the fact that a real person cares matters.
Yeah. Well, and it's also because we can so often slip into a Pelagian perspective that only the best homilies matter, and that we should all be great homilies. Now, I think everyone should strive for better homilies. I think so often we kind of settle on homily quality, but nevertheless, we have to realize that God is the one who saves. God is the one who converts. The Spirit working through the preacher, through his preparation, through his preaching, matters. And that disconnect at the very beginning is harmful to the act of preaching. And I think it's the same thing, because I'll also use, say more about the homily, but I also used last year more so than this year, AI for preparing class lesson plans.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't just take that straight either, because I'm like, well, part of teaching is like, I need to be giving you from me, because I can't be a convincing preacher of truth unless it's actually coming out of me. If it's not coming out of me, then it just feels like something in it just realizes like that's not you.
It's empty. Yeah.
Yeah. I can execute it well, but it's not there. So I'll use AI for my homilies a bit like you were saying, where either I'll have, say, a bunch of notes together. I'm like, hey, I was reading through scripture for the readings this weekend, and I'm like, I really felt I got these notes from God, but I'm like, man, I have no idea how to put these things together.
Yeah.
So I'll put all my notes together, put the readings in, throw it in, like, hey, give me an outline of how to put it together. and it'll go produce outline all these kind of things like maybe there's something there or something. Okay, yep, I see it. I actually like that. And then I'll take that and then I'll write out the whole homily from there. So that it's like a scaffolding that started from me, then was kind of like tweaked a bit, and then the rest was produced by me.
Yeah.
Or
I think that's a helpful way. I've done that before. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like the blank. It's similar to the blank page. I'm like, sure, it's one thing to have a whole bunch of notes. It's another thing then to actually turn that into something to preach.
Well, that's it. Because like you've had it before. It's like, and you exactly described it. It's like, I have this idea. This is my nugget. And I just, that's not a homily though. A homily isn't just a nugget. Like I need, help me to get there.
Yeah. This is Sunday homily, not a daily mass homily.
Yes, exactly. You know?
Or, so my homily this weekend, I have like a couple things like, these are great points. I have no idea, like I can figure out how to fit them into the second Sunday of Easter, but like, this isn't an Easter homily. Yeah, I need to figure out somehow to get her back to Easter.
Yeah.
Great things, just not on point.
And it's like, you know that there's a way. You feel the 2 points. You're like, I know these can connect. I just can't think about how the 2 connect.
Yeah. Well, it's not like that's what like intelligence is. So as a slight thing before we like the intellectus is like the intuitive knowledge of the soul, where it just receives the impression of truth and it's like, yes, there is truth there. Ratio is finding the connection to bring them together. Like, what is the ratio between those 2 truths? And so it's like, yeah, I have the intellectus. Like, I have the impression there's a truth here.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do the ratio to figure out like how does it come together, but ratio is discursive. Ratio is like a math equation. So like, give me some kind of connection between these 2.
Yeah.
Because I know that it's there. The truth is there. I just can't figure out how to put these 2 pieces together. And I have like 5 more hours, please. And I don't have time to do that work myself. So if you give me a pointer on where to go on this.
It's real.
But so there's that thing. But then I'll also use it where I have my nice homily. I'll throw it in. Like, hey, give me like rhetorical critiques. Give me phrasing critiques. Like go through like a full criticism on like my structure, my movements, to tempos, like my vocabulary. Am I being consistent in my usage? Or like this one part, everything's flowing and then it feels rough, this transition here. And I'll point out and have it do like real criticism on it. And it'll just spit out like a whole bunch like, or there's like this, or there's this. And like, there's all these little things like, oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. And I don't take it all because like it doesn't know, but it's, or like, okay, that's like a total AI phrasing of it, but the direction that's going is good. Let me now rephrase that now.
That I like your way of doing that better because that's such a more nuanced thing that gets you exactly kind of what you're looking for from it, which is like, I know this could be improved. How could it be improved?
Yeah.
You have read everything that's been written. How does this compare to everything that's been written that's similar?
Yeah.
And it can then point those things out to you. Then you can then take the steps. And then how do I like that? How to integrate that in? Because I know when I do it, I'm just kind of a bit more low resolution. I'm like, can you clean this up to make it sound better? Because like I just know myself as like I've never been a top class writer.
Yeah.
So like I have this thing written. I know this is B+, bumped up to an A-, like just clean it up. And then I try to look through it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that sounds a bit too AI-y. Let me just get rid of that or adjust that. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I kind of like the way I said it better. I feel like I'm losing my voice. I try not to. But it's hard because it just makes the changes, the way that it rewrites the thing is what it does. And you're like, I don't love that. But that way you're doing it, it actually gives you what you want without what you don't want.
Yeah, well, because I tell it, give me critical feedback, and it doesn't just change the text. It will like here's a excerpt from it, and here's concrete ways to fix it.
That's so helpful.
And so I leverage it as a tool for that. And then I'll also at times because like ChatGPT and other groups are getting it, but I've been using it long enough so it has like weeks of my past homilies, so it has reference of my own voice.
Yeah,
and so it can more easily keep consistency with my own voice as opposed to just generic internet voice.
Yeah.
But also say during Advent, I was really digging the prophetic readings. And I was really leaning into a more like apocalyptic prophetic like preaching tone, not like the world's falling apart apocalyptic, like a like revelatory apocalyptic um preaching voice, which it didn't really like on one hand because like, well, you start bringing out different kind of challenging, you're pushing bats against internet voice. But I'm like, well, no, I'm intentionally choosing to use this style of preaching
Mhm.
and this kind of rhetoric. And like, okay, great. Now then gave all these other adjustments to like tweak into that particular voice I was trying to express and bring out those more.
It could recognize that
Yeah.
style and make the shift.
Yeah, because it has all the literature. It's like it has the prophets from the Bible. It has Saint Vincent Ferrer. It has like all of these individuals in there. And so it's like, okay, this is this, but I'm particularly leaning into this style of voice.
Mm.
So help it be the rhetoric be improved for this voice within my general voice. And I found it's really, really helped to dial in. My homilies get like rhetorically tight while not really like losing content, not expanding, kind of just like getting things really dialed in on like the rhetorical part.
Huh. I like that. There's something else I wanted to get into. Emails. Or not just emails, but also like form letters.
Mm-hmm.
Like people ask me sometimes for like exemptions from exams or to write recommendation letters. And there it's like, it's great at formal writing. It's like, okay, here's the information, or like, here's this person's virtues and accomplishments and the good things that I see that I want to emphasize. Put this in like the way that's supposed to look.
Yeah.
Because there's very clear form, like how to write those things.
Yeah.
It's like, I just do that. And then it gives you a nice little draft. You're like, all right, let's not gas the person up too much, or like, let's not make this like the next big thing. And then you can kind of adjust it, but then it gives you like, that's what that should sound like. And as much as those things count, which is person X said nice thing, or person X gave, me being person X gave person Y, the recipient, like this affirmation or like asked for this exemption. It's like, good. That's all that's looking at.
Yeah.
Done. Good. And like, that's something I'd ask a secretary to do. It's like, look, there it is.
Form letters, love them. Don't write them nearly as much probably as you do, at least right now.
At least right now.
But yeah, they're so useful for those sort of things. Now, I mean, like you have to use the tool right? You can't just be like, hey, write me I don't know, letter of recommendation to grad school, please. Person B is really nice.
And it can do that.
Oh, no, it will.
It's going to be such like generic trash.
Yeah. Right. You're going to have to write a page worth of information.
That's it.
About the person. Like you still have to put the work in. And that's kind of where people get tripped up. One of the ways you can use these tools wrong and why like slop is a thing is because people think it can replace the human work. It's like, well, yes and no. It can augment human work. It can't really replace it. Last time a couple months ago, I wrote a form letter and I wrote like a full page going through explaining like a description of all the things and then sending out, put it in this particular format for me. And then it did it. And then like a couple iterations, like tightening things up, like, please, this is repetitive. Stop being so sycophantic there. Right, just tightening those up. But that's what people kind of miss is like, it can't replace you.
No, it can't. But it's nice to be able to, what it can do is, like you said, like you end up writing a page or a very large paragraph, but I can just kind of go stream of conscience.
Yeah.
This person did this that one time. Oh, this is how this went. I really like the fact that they do this, this, and this. And I can just kind of put it all out there, and then it can then put it in that nice kind of like, based on that, it'll write out the thing. Like, oh, that's actually good. Or you can kind of revise that. But
which is kind of like a secretary.
Kind of like a secretary.
Not to bemoan.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I can kind of get up there like,
But like with the secretary, it would have been in the past, you would go into their office, kind of like stream of conscious talk for a couple minutes about these people. They would take notes down, jot it up. You would have already had a format probably already, and they would have then typed it all, put it in, maybe given you a draft, depending on how well you had a relationship, not even that, and then sent it out.
Yeah.
Although, literally, that kind of workflow with the AIs are really powerful. If back to like the scaffolding, you and I were talking about this before, but like the more structure around them you can give, the more powerful they are, and the less you have to worry about them going off the ranch and just doing whatever they want. So taking even a form letter that you normally do for, say, recommendations,
Uh,
and then giving it that and giving it a your description, and it can pair those two together.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the same thing with the hum. Okay, here's my base thing already. Here's the style. Now adjust a bit is where it gets really powerful, as opposed to I have nothing, so just make the world for me, please. Thank you. This is mine now. I made it. Well, do you even know what it is?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Then you are kind of, it becomes in more of a tool that your mind is really using and helping to kind of shape and bring together, as opposed to just bypassing any of your thought.
Yeah.
Which I think that's when it becomes really like, and you feel that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I became convicted of last year. I was using it a bunch out with these bulletin articles, and I became realized like, this isn't good because it's not my voice. It's not me.
Yeah.
I might agree with everything that's being said here. I might be able to like, yeah, I'm glad that this is being out there, but it's not so much that this truth being out there. It's about like, the shepherd leading the sheep. And like, it's better for me to kind of, but also even for me individually to actually process these things and how do I actually want to convey. And I can sit there, I could spend, a good 2 hours kind of like playing with the AI and this homily from the Pope and how do I want this to sound and come across. But that's still different than the writing of it. And realizing like more and more as I've gone through, the more I'm like, actually, I want to use this less and less for as I actually, when I speak to the people.
Yeah.
Different for letters and things like that. And emails are great too, because I can say, I need to respond to this email. This is what I want to say. My one sentence, I'm like, all right, add nice friendly things in there. But I'm noticing even it's changing then, because I already know where I tend to fall short now. So for emails, becomes then, this is what I want to say. All right, what does a good email look like? I've seen examples of this now from the AI. Yeah. I hope you're doing really well. Best regards. Like, just start adding those things in. It's like, I know what it's going to tell me to do. Okay, fine. And let's consider alternatives, Yeah, so stuff like that, it's helpful for. All right, so that's how we, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of then one of the challenges then is around like your voice.
Yeah.
Remember when I, shortly after a priest, I was talking to one of the parishioners, or one of the parishioners was giving me feedback after Mass.
Okay.
Or was wanting to give me feedback after Mass on one of my homilies. And his wife kind of smacked him and then took him away. But I remember as like the first several years, it took 3 years, like full experimentation, trying to find my voice in preaching. Now I think at this point, like, I have a sense of my voice. It's still developing, but like the field has kind of narrowed. But it took several years of just like doing it, man. Okay, what is it to preach? Like all those sort of things that that's kind of one of those risks, like with these things, like if I'm just always doing the emails, always doing the letters, always doing those things, is like we risk not developing our voice. And our voice is so important to how we express ourselves, how we reveal ourselves, how we make ourselves known to other people.
Yeah.
And then how people come to know us.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of those real risks, I think, particularly for, say, high schoolers and college students, because that's when you're finding your voice and you're learning how to use your voice. And I mean, like, broadly speaking, in there.
No, that's so good. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why it feels so wrong to use it then, because you're aware that even if something's being conveyed, there's this, you feel the thing of, I'm not being known.
Yeah.
I still don't know how to share myself and to express myself, and to, like, we are made to be known, to be seen through the things that we say, and then to be understood and loved, ideally, right? And it's like, yeah, if you're a kid using it for an essay or something, it's like, great, that's being praised, but it just further feeds in that thing of like, nobody actually knows me. I actually don't. Nobody, you can't actually even receive the praise or rest in it. It's like, you actually haven't done it, and you feel that. It just hurts.
Yeah.
It's like, you might have gotten the grade, but you did not get the grade. And it just makes you feel more and more like a fraud, and you're just going to end up retreating further away.
Yeah. Because then like, you don't know how to do it too.
Yeah.
And so you still want the affirmation of the grade, but you can't get that affirmation grade because you stunted your ability to do it.
Right.
And so you get a vicious feedback loop like, no, but I have to use it. But the more I use it, the more alienated I become of myself,
Yeah.
let alone my alienation from my peers, my teachers, and the family. And I just get caught up in this spiral. It's like, I don't know my voice. Like when I speak.
And at that age, you don't even know who you are. Like that's
Yeah.
like it's like like your voice in like a deep sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
When I think is part of probably why we're seeing so many of these problems with like teenagers and like young 20 somethings ending up in these psychosis around these AI chatbots where like they all of a sudden end up in like these deep relationships or like quote unquote deep relationships or in these um just like weird rabbit holes. Well, how did they get there? I was like, well, the system replaced their voice
Hmm.
because part of it doesn't help right now, right? Our society is weird on identity, and that on one hand, they say you have this innate identity that you just kind of have to discover and kind of make whatever is your well, on one hand, it's like you just kind of like discover it's there and don't let the world kind of like impose that on you. You just kind of figure it out and like you're going to find that identity. It's going to flower in any number of ways. It can be any number of these identities. While at the same time, it's like, no, but like you can create your identity and be like whoever you want to be whatever you want to be. And there's this like weird thing around identity where you can't just like be. And then so you don't know who you are, and nowhere in the world wants to tell you who you are or help you figure out who you are, or is like gets weird about trying to help you understand who you are. And then these systems start saying like whatever feeds back in. And so you don't even have an off ramp in the world. Because if you say, oh, well, I am X, because ChatGPT is telling you you're X, the world's going to be like, oh, well, I guess you're X then, because the world won't affirm or deny. And so the normal feedback loop of society, like, no, actually, that's not a living thing. It's not your girlfriend or boyfriend. Like, you can't fall in love with the machine. Like, society doesn't have the confidence to say that.
yeah.
Because society has lost its confidence to give any identity affirmation or like rejection once the person feels that that's what their identity is in some way. And so like you can't get out of it.
Mm.
Like where do you go then?
Where do you go, right? Who's going to speak objective truth to you? And you can even hear that when you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a thing, huh? I'm thinking like there's news stories now of like probably have been for a long time of like, a guy marries his stuffed animal.
Mm-hmm.
And a similar thing now of like, how many are in much more intimate relationships with their, I guess, pseudo relationships with their, chatbots.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember there was an article I read, a woman in Japan marrying her chatbot.
yeah. Oh. But that's the thing is like, it's not a person. It's not there. It might say the things, but it is kind of just, regurgitating back internet things. And that's when it becomes like really deforming. I think we got to talk a bit about kind of the human kind of side of things. We've kind of been touching around it, but just to say a bit more on like something of the effect of like these tools are good as far as they help us cultivate and better communicate like our humanity, like who we are, and or even just to the same way to use the internet, like work through things in the world, but they can't they aren't persons, and they
Mm-hmm.
can't take the place of personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets helpful to create a recipe or to like give a workout plan that you can then go and use, which then influences your relations with other people or like just your own humanity.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different than the way you engage with it or then subbing out your actual voice.
Yeah.
Right
Well,
over there.
in some way, these systems are the natural product. I don't want to say inevitable, but the natural product of what the internet is. And I think Pope Leo is quite accurate in seeing that we're in the kind of same situation where Leo the 13th was in the stage of the Industrial Revolution. Because the Industrial Revolution, right, started in the 1700s, but it wasn't really until the 1800s that everything really took off, that things really started changing and the major societal changes across the globe were like, oh, this is going to change everything. Like we always knew this was going to be a big deal, but it's a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
The internet has kind of arrived now at that place because what was the internet trying to do? And computing trying to do? Well, it was trying to take analog world that is a world that has just like keeps going. It's not fixed points in space, and tries to model it, reduce it to data, into discrete points, things that could be measured and then modeled in fixed units in ones and zeros. That's what computers work on. So it can't understand anything that can't be measured in some way in ones or zeros. So we're trying to model the world, and so we can put it on a computer because then computers can do really fast calculations, and that's really useful to figure things out. Okay. The internet then came along and said, okay, now wouldn't it be really great if we took all those computers with their limited information and their limiting computing power in different places, and if we connect them all together, now we can share this information that is in one part of the world with another part of the world and have our computers share their local modeling of reality in their data and then start computing on that. And then the 2000s and 2010s was, now we have all these things computed. Then this was big data people are talking about last decade. Like, wait, hold on. Now if we create these really big computers in these giant warehouses and just start sending all that information together, we're pretty sure if we do statistics on this, we'll find some really cool information about on that. And then AI now is the culmination of the last 60 years of digitization of the world. We're like, if we just get more and more information in here, eventually we're going to get really cool information out of it. But it's also like the 1800s and the Industrial Revolution. We're like, yeah, we knew this was going to be a big deal. We didn't know how it could be until it finally arrived. I'm like, oh, this is what industrial nations look like. And now we're in the internet age coming into, oh, this is what it looks like when you can put all this information together, connect all these computers together, connect all of this stuff together. And so we're now running into that of, this is what's happening. Like now we're in this transition period of what happens, right? And when we hit the Industrial Revolution in the full swing, that's also when we ran into Marxism in major ways. Like, well, where does the human fit into this?
Mm.
Like, we don't want to subject the human to the machine. So how now do we fit into here? Right. And that's kind of where now the big conversations are moving. So, well, where do we fit around these machines now that the internet's been fun and all, but now we are hitting a pivot point, like, oh, this is something incredibly powerful, right? It can on one hand be very liberating, just as the Industrial Revolution liberated so many from abject, what we would now consider abject poverty. What before they were just going to, this is how humans lived for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Afterwards, like, no, that's just abject poverty.
Mm.
We're in a similar sort of thing. It's like, well, yeah, these could be used really powerfully to do incredible harm, to be used like to manipulate, to like take advantage, coalescing of resources. Or it could be, well, individuals, if it's built well, now could have access to the ability to find information to study. I don't think it can't replace a teacher.
No.
And now I think it's wrong to think it can replace any kind of like proper pedagogical process. But for someone who's interested in learning on their own, it's something really powerful being able to like surface all these things now.
My impression is it seems like your Industrial Revolution revolutionized blue collar labor.
Mm-hmm.
Say from farming and manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
specifically. It seems like now what is AI doing? It is revolutionizing in a way, white collar labor
Mm-hmm.
of, things like from legal advice to medical opinions and, coding, any kind of business things in between. It can give a lot of the thought work, at least like one level of it, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
that middle
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. And that's going to change kind of the workforce, just as the industrial revolution did. And yeah, there's a survival through all that. And there is kind of a dehumanizing in work that happens there, right? Factories that was the whole thing which you just mentioned there. And yeah, that's a good analogy though of like, yeah, the internet started this is kind of the fruition of what the internet can do. And then now my kind of fear or wonder is what's the next Marxist, what's the big like error of the next age, like this coming
Mm-hmm.
age, like
Mm-hmm.
the AI age, like what's going to be kind of the Leviathan, or like, that the
Mm-hmm.
vicious thought, the Marxism, like we've
Mm-hmm.
had to deal with. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, this is bad. It's inherently atheistic. Is it going to be just another version of materialism? It probably will be,
Mm-hmm.
but that'd be interesting.
Yeah, definitely be interesting. On some one hand, some Marxists would say that this is where Marxism was going and would be bringing a like trending towards.
Sure.
So some of them would be like, yeah, that's definitely there. Now Marxism has changed a lot, but it's going to be that's kind of the interesting thing is where are we going? In
Hmm.
some degree, transhumanism may already be that reality where kind of we were saying about identity earlier. If we have lost our confidence in what it is to be human, then it's harder to articulate like what these things are and why can't we do these other things. And transhumanism last decade was already strongly developing like the philosophical foundations for that.
Yeah.
Um and it could be the error is just a loss of humanity, philosophically speaking, which we've already been on the trend of largely since the computer age. Now, this was going on before, and it started with industrialism. Brought in a question, okay, well, what does it mean to be human when you are the cog in the machine that the human can be swapped out on the industrial assembly line and you're no longer, your individualness is less important? Started the problem of what does it mean to be human? Um, but this could be, the error could be the loss of human qua human. Um,
Hmm.
which we've have been on that trend for 10, 15 years. It's been particularly relevant, particularly heavy the last 10, 15 years.
No, you might be right there. That does seem to be the thing that's going to be under attack. What does it actually mean to be human?
Yeah.
Yeah, then how to be properly prophetic of what it actually means to be human. It seems like that's going to be an important role for our time, not only from the pulpit, but then just in lifestyle and how we,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm a pastor, like how do I kind of cultivate a culture at the parish, like that emphasizes humanity
Mm-hmm.
in the person. And it's tough to do because we are so close to the errors of the day,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like, to push against that and to see like, no, there's something irreplaceable. Hmm. I feel like we're arriving at the time of closing thoughts and summary ideas.
Yeah. I think the community ideas is where it ends. I think the community idea is also where the big like future thing to be aiming for in this is, where we don't want to let AI replace communion.
With real persons. Yeah, so leaning into real relationships with people,
Yeah.
learning how to develop your actual voice,
Yeah.
to say what you mean, meaning what you say, and dealing with the positives and the negatives that come with that,
Mm-hmm.
and the growing pains rather. And yeah, to recognize the good of the tool for some things, but to beware of its capacity to isolate
Yeah.
and its capacity to take away your voice.
Yeah. And I think that deep communion is will help prevent that.
Mm.
Because a deep communion, you feel when you're not being known.
Yeah.
And you want to be known. And you'll feel, okay, this is not leading me to me into communion. And will help naturally prevent it. Like people are going to want X, Y, like black and white answers. But I think leaning into a deep communion, into community, will help people navigate how to use these tools well. Because it'll feel wrong when
Right.
you're using it wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of the experience there. Because then, like, what's the other temptation is like it's easy to do these things, to take the shortcuts. But like, what is the cost? The cost is that you feel your humanity being lost there. You
Yeah.
feel your voice being lost, and yeah, that's the good we are aiming at, and the pain that you'd feel by losing it is that erosion of yourself.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good final message: is make friends and have communion and community. This has been an episode of Dinner at the Rectory. Hope to see you next time. God bless.
God bless.